Today we'll speak about the second noble truth, the one that is called the samudaya satya, or the truth of the origin of dukkha. For the sake of ease in understanding our subject, we'd like to take a bird's eye view of all the Ariya Satya together. If we look at these logically, we'll see that the first noble truth asks the question, what is it? What is it? Then the second noble truth concerns the question, from what? From what does it come, or from what does it arise? The third question then is, for what purpose? What is the purpose of this? And then the fourth, by what means or method is that purpose realized? If we look at the noble truths together and see all of these four happening together, then we will have a very clear understanding of what the noble truths are about. So, asking, what is it? From what? For what? And by what means? By what method? At the Ajanta caves in India, there are a number of relief sculptures carved into the rock. And one of them portrays 4 deer sharing the same head. There are 4 bodies, but one head is shared between all 4 of the deer. And our understanding is that this surely must be meant to represent the 4 noble truths. We've got a few copies of this around Suan Mok, especially up at the art workshop in the woods. If one reflects upon this picture, then one will have a clear and easy understanding of the structure or the outline of the Ariya Satya. All 4 of the deers perform a different function or activity, but they all share the same head. This is how it works with the 4 Ariya Satya. The first one answers the question, what is dukkha? What is dukkha? The second one answers the question, where does it come from? Where does dukkha come from? The third noble truth answers the question, for what purpose? What is the benefit and purpose of dukkha? And the answer is, in order to quench it, in order to extinguish it. And then the fourth question, the fourth noble truth answers the question, how? And the answer is, by the Noble Eightfold Path. This is the outline, the framework of the 4 noble truths. The second noble truth in Pali is called Samudaya Ariya Satya. Samudaya Ariya Satya. The meanings of these things must be attended to carefully. We must understand these words correctly, both in sufficient detail in a refined enough way, we must be careful about understanding them thoroughly and also in a deep enough way. Especially with the word samudaya. Samudaya. We must be careful to understand what is meant by this, because words can be confusing. Words can take on different meanings and connotations, and this can confuse us. So it's important that we have a correct understanding of the word samudaya. The word samudaya is very similar or almost identical in meaning to the words hetu and paccaya. Hetu and paccaya. But we should try to find individual words that can translate all of them. Our understanding is that we can translate these three words in the following way. Samudaya as origin, and then hetu as cause, especially the primary cause of something, and paccaya as condition, which is often secondary or supportive to the primary cause, the hetu. So we can translate them origin, cause, and condition. This is our understanding. Now, all three of these words pretty much have the meaning of cause. But causes can take on different forms, as we've mentioned. There can be the primary causes and the secondary causes. There can be indirect as well as direct causes. And so we prefer to use the word hetu for the primary, the most direct cause. And then especially when there is a single cause, we use the word hetu. When there are many conditions, and so none of them is really primary, we use the word paccaya, or condition. We'll spend a little bit of time discussing these three terms, because if we understand them correctly and clearly, it will be quite beneficial. When a potter makes pots, let's just say when a potter makes a pot, we can see all three of these. When the potter makes the pot, the primary cause, the hetu of the pot, is the desire or the need of the potter that motivates the whole activity. The paccaya, the support conditions, are things like collecting the clay, bringing the water, having the potter's wheel, and all the other things necessary to make the pot. And then when all these the cause and the conditions are brought together, that is called samudaya, the origination of the pot. All three of these can be found in the simple activity of making a pot. And so if we ought to understand the difference between each of these three terms. In the Pali, this is called Dukkha samudaya, Dukkha samudaya. And for this word, which is almost always translated the cause of suffering. Now we've already discussed how the word suffering isn't such a great translation of dukkha. And here, one of the synonyms for samudaya is used. And so it's called the cause of suffering. One of the synonyms of samudaya is used instead of the direct translation of samudaya. And then this rather easy translation now is quite common and used all over the place. And so we've tried to explain things in a way that will help you to understand these words correctly. The Pali dukkha samudaya, or even the rather vague English translation, cause of suffering. In the Pali, we pretty much only find the words dukkha samudaya. We almost never find the words dukkha hetu, the cause of dukkha, or dukkha paccaya, the conditions of dukkha. These appear very rarely. It's almost always dukkha samudaya, which has the broadest meaning of the three possibilities. So we should understand the correct meaning in this case and at least use it ourselves, even if everybody else has a different understanding. So we'd like to look at the words hetu and paccaya. In the Pali, there is some overlap between these words, but for the most part, hetu means cause in the sense of the direct cause, and also with the implication of being single, the single direct cause. Whereas paccaya has the meaning of being indirect, and there are generally many of them. So hetu refers to a direct and single cause, and paccaya to various indirect causes. But even so, sometimes in the Pali, these words are used to mean the same thing. Hetu and paccaya are sometimes used as synonyms. So this makes it difficult for some people to sort out the meanings, and it makes our study at times a bit troublesome. Because sometimes in the Pali, these two words are just used to explain each other. This is one of the difficulties we must always deal with when we use the Pali as a basis of our study. So let's look at the word samudaya again. Samudaya can be broken into two parts, sang, and udaya. Sang means complete, to be complete with nothing lacking, full and complete. Udaya means to arise, to occur, to arise. And so samudaya is a complete arising, something that arises complete, whole, with nothing lacking. So the word dukkha samudaya means the arising of many things together. The word sang can also mean together. The arising together of many, many things until they come together completely, and there is dukkha. There is complete dukkha. So that's enough about the literal meaning of the word samudaya. If we spend too much time on this, then it'll turn into a Pali class rather than a Dhamma talk. Next, we'd like to look at dukkha samudaya in terms of its practical meaning, and especially according to the principle we find in the scriptures that everything arises from a hetu or cause, and then must proceed or exist under the power or according to the power and influence of that hetu. When we say that all things arise from a cause, we're speaking specifically about all the things which are caused, which are conditioned. We're not speaking about the thing which doesn't have any cause, which has no conditions, which is completely independent. We're saying that all conditioned things, all impermanent things, arise from a cause. We can say that all phenomena arise from a cause, but that which is the opposite of phenomena, the noumenon, which is that which has no cause, of course is different. All phenomena are merely the appearance or the manifestation of a cause, and then must exist, must occur, proceed according to the power of that cause. If we're speaking about Buddhism, then we can never avoid the fundamental principle that all things arise from a cause and exist according to the power of that cause. If we're talking about that things don't have causes, that are free of causes, then we're talking about some other creed or sect or some philosophical school that existed in India before, during, and after the Buddha's time. There have been a number of philosophies that have tried to assert that things don't have causes. But that's outside of Buddhism. In Buddhism, all things except the noumenon, the unconditioned, all things arise from a cause and exist according to that cause. When we say in Buddhism that all things come from causes, we're pointing to the basic scientific character of Buddhism, the understanding that all things come from causes is the basic principle of science. So Buddhism isn't any kind of a philosophy that relies on assumptions, that relies on speculation, on basically guesswork. Buddhism deals only with causes and the effects of causes, and tries to understand this. And so this is scientific. We should never confuse Buddhism with philosophy, with rational and all other kinds of speculation based on various assumptions. So then when we ask, what is the cause of something, of some phenomena, if we answered the cause is God, can you accept that? Can you accept that the cause of each phenomena is God? Can you accept that as scientific? Is that a scientific answer? In Buddhism, we would respond in line with the principle of paticca samuppada, dependent origination. That the cause of each phenomena is that cause which is directly associated, which is right there, stuck together directly and straightforwardly with the phenomena. We don't take the cause to be God or gods or angels or any powers which we can't see for ourselves. But we take the direct, immediate cause which that we can see. This cause and this phenomena are associated, are closely associated, are stuck right together. In the old scriptures, we can find descriptions of the kind of situations which were happening in at his time. And so there are descriptions of some of the beliefs people held. When it came to the understanding of the cause of dukkha, and we're talking about those who were not following Buddhism, there were some who believed that dukkha and sukha, or we can say happiness and pain, were the result of actions that the individual committed in a past life. That all the dukkha and sukha of this life are the results of things I did in a past life or in past lives. This is one belief. Another group believed that all pleasure and pain in this life arises because God has ordained so. It arises out of that's the way God wants it. In Pali, the word used was isara, or the Sanskrit equivalent is isvara, which is a proper noun meaning God. So other groups held that all pleasure and pain, all happiness and dukkha, gladness and sadness, occur because of God. That's the way God makes things. And then there was a third group that said that sukha and dukkha have no cause. Sukha and dukkha are just kind of floating there, hanging there. Nothing causes them. They just kind of come and go without any rhyme or reason. These are three basic understandings about the cause of dukkha. And all of them are outside the Buddhist teaching. The Buddha, when he arose in the world, said that it doesn't work like that. Those three beliefs don't really fit with the facts. He said, whether there is dukkha or sukha depends completely on a direct cause, and that direct immediate cause of dukkha and sukha is whether or not one is correct in accordance with the law of paticca samuppada. If the way we are living at this moment is proper and in harmony, in accordance with the law of paticca samuppada, there's no dukkha. But if our way of living, our way of being at this moment is opposed to, is in conflict with the law of paticca samuppada, then there will be dukkha. The Buddha said there aren't these distant causes outside of ourselves. The cause of dukkha is right here. It's right there in a close association with the phenomena, the result. of dukkha. So regarding dukkha samudaya, there are those who say that dukkha originates because of old karma. Karma just means action. So old karma means actions in previous lives. But Buddhism says no, that's not how it is. There are others who say that dukkha originates through the power of God. God creates dukkha for us. And Buddhism says no, that's not in line with the facts. And there are some that say there's no origin of dukkha. Dukkha has no cause or origin. It just happens. And they don't say how. Buddhism also says that that's not correct. None of these three ideas are how it actually happens. Buddhism, instead of speculating philosophically about how it might be, just tries to examine and find out what is actually going on. What is the direct and immediate cause or origin of dukkha? What are the things right here that are immediately related to dukkha, where we can see them together happening right here? What is the cause that we see existing right here, existing in relationship, in immediate association with dukkha? And as we've talked about previously, we can say that the origin of dukkha happens through the kilesa, the defilements, or it happens through craving, tanha, and through avijja, ignorance, as has been explained when we discussed paticca samuppada earlier. Now there's something very strange about dukkha samudaya. In Thailand, as well as Burma and Sri Lanka, there are a number of Buddhists who believe very strongly, have a very deep ingrained belief that dukkha arises because of old karma. And so when dukkha happens to them, which is how they see it, they just sit and cry and moan and wail about the old karma and don't see anything to do about it. It's quite strange that there are so many Buddhists who are holding a belief which is directly opposed to what the Buddha actually taught. But in Thailand, Burma, and Sri Lanka, we can find this kind of belief all over the place. People don't seem to pay attention, at least to this teaching of the Buddha, that dukkha has a direct cause right here. The origin of dukkha is in ignorance, craving, and defilement right here. The Buddha never said anything about old karma in past lives as being the origin of dukkha. So there is this quite strange situation where these Buddhists are holding a belief which isn't even Buddhist. So although they may say they are Buddhists, please don't mistake this belief to be a Buddhist belief. We must realize that there are many Buddhists holding ideas which are not really Buddhism. If we don't understand this point, we'll be very confused by all the conflicting beliefs which people are holding. The Buddha taught simply that dukkha has a direct immediate cause which we can verify right here. We don't have to believe anything about anything outside ourselves like past lives and all that. So please be careful to realize that there's a lot of things going under the name Buddhism which are not really Buddhism. They're not the Buddha's teaching. They're not in line with the facts. Now, in spite of what we've said, we should be very clear that the belief that dukkha arises from old karma, we should understand that this belief has great value and importance in terms of morality. By morality we mean living lives in a good, wholesome, peaceful way. This belief in old karma, many people, when dukkha happens, because they attribute it to previous actions, whether earlier in this life or in a past life, this belief will have great value in explaining to these people the necessity to stop doing foolish, evil things and do good. So there's great value on the morality level in this belief. However, it is beneficial in terms of morality, but it is not necessarily beneficial in terms of absolute truth or paramata sajja. Or when a Christian suffers pain or dukkha and then attributes it to God and then prays to God to take the pain away, there's no need to try and prove whether this is correct or incorrect understanding. But we can observe quite easily that this belief that God is the creator of dukkha and can take it away, this leads to morality, to people leading good, decent, peaceful lives, if they actually act upon the belief. And so these kinds of belief are of great value. However, they are not absolute truth. They're a kind of relative truth. They're a relative truth that brings relative benefits, the benefits of morality. Now, many people are unable to understand absolute truth. And so we must maintain these teachings of relative truth for the sake of those who cannot understand absolute truth. However, we should never confuse the fact that these relative teachings are relative truth and not absolute truth or paramata sajja. Now, when we speak of the Ariya Sajja, we're talking exclusively about ultimate truth, absolute truth, paramata sajja. In terms of the noble truths, it's no longer relative. And so when we talk about dukkha samudaya, we're speaking now in absolute terms of what's directly observable, what's direct fact. It has nothing to do with speculation or philosophy. When we speak about the origin of dukkha in this way, we can give a variety of responses. We've already heard some of them. In the in the explanation of the Four Noble Truths, the origin of dukkha is specifically given as being tanha, craving. When the Buddha first taught, and in all subsequent places when the Buddha or anyone else taught the Four Noble Truths, the second Noble Truth was always given as being craving. The origin of dukkha is craving. And this is, of course, absolutely true. But as we understand from studying Paticca Samuppada, the dependent origination of dukkha has as its cause avijja, ignorance, not knowing things as they truly are. So this cause of dukkha is ignorance. But as we've mentioned in the last couple days, in short, upadana in the five aggregates is dukkha. This means when we speak in the most direct and immediate terms, the most direct cause of dukkha is upadana, attachment, that grasping and clinging at things with as I in mind. And so further, we can also say that dukkha arises because of the concocting of sankhara, because of the cooking up of the mind by sankhara, there arises dukkha. When the Buddha has said that sankhara is the supreme dukkha. And so, in talking about dukkha samudaya, we can mention we can give four responses. But in fact, it's all the same thing. All these four responses differ in literal meaning, but are talking about the same fact. The origin of dukkha happens through all of these things, all of them together. It just depends on exactly which angle we look at things, or if we take the most immediate cause, or causes which are a little further, a little bit preceding. So we can say the cause of dukkha is ignorance, the cause of dukkha is the concocting of sankhara. We can say the cause of dukkha is craving, or the cause of dukkha is attachment. The most immediate is attachment, and a little further, a little before that is craving. And the most originating cause of dukkha is ignorance. We're talking about one thing. It's all the same process. So please don't think there's any contradiction or conflict between these various responses. In talking about the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha himself said specifically that tanha is the origin of dukkha. The direct cause of dukkha is tanha, or craving, thirst. But then if we ask, well, where does craving come from? We answer, ignorance. Craving comes from ignorance, from not knowing things according to truth. And so why not, then we can just say that dukkha comes from ignorance. Or we say, well, in what way does craving, or in what way does dukkha result from craving? And we must say that through craving there is upadana, and then there is dukkha. There must be upadana coming out of that craving, in order for there to be dukkha. If there's no ignorance, there's no dukkha. If there's no upadana, there's no dukkha. And then all this activity of ignorance, of craving, of upadana, all this activity is called sankhara. This complete concocting, this busy concocting is called sankhara. And so it's just as correct to say that dukkha comes from sankhara. Dukkha arises out of sankhara. So we can use these different responses, but there's no contradiction. It's all talking about the same thing. In fact, there are more than just these 4 words. There are quite a few other things that are involved that we could say are the origin of dukkha, the cause of dukkha. But these 4 words are enough, because all the other things are directly related, are implied, are included within these 4. If we'd like, in fact, to just gather it all together into one word, it all comes down to that dukkha originates from tanha. The origin of dukkha is tanha. If we want to just bring it down to one word, we use the word tanha, craving. And craving simply means desire through the power of ignorance. When there is desire because of, through, with ignorance, this is tanha. Most, or put it more bluntly, stupid desire, foolish want. This is the origin of dukkha. There are many other words we could use, but in the end it all comes down to just this one thing. This word tanha, or foolish want, is quite broad. If we use it in terms of God, we can say that there is the tanha that God will help us. And then even if God doesn't help us, we still want God to help us. There is still this tanha that God will help us. So we can use this word tanha, or craving, even in this way. And the reason we want God to help us is because we've got this craving over here someplace. There's something we desire and crave. And so we also desire that God will help us to get that thing that we crave. And so this desire that God will help us is coming from craving, from this tanha that we have. If there isn't any belief, any sense, any grasping at I and mine, then there's no tanha, there's no craving. There is still craving arising because we're still clinging and grasping at things as I and mine, because there is still upadana, there is still arising tanha. And because there's all this upadana and tanha, we stay ignorant, and there is still avijja, incorrect knowing. So next we'll look at the characteristics of tanha according to the way the Buddha described them. In the Pali, when the Buddha was describing the Noble Truths, he described tanha in the following way. The first is bonopavika, means leading to a new existence. Existence here doesn't mean something physical. We're not talking about the existence of benches or even of physical bodies. We're not talking about the existence of after this body dies, that another body will exist. We're talking about the existence that arises from craving. Every time there is craving, there is a new existence. If there's craving in this minute, then there is a certain existence. And then later, in another minute, another hour, if there is craving, there is another existence. We're talking about the existence, or bhava, that arises every time there is craving. We're not talking about a physical existence. So, in some minutes, we want to be millionaires with piles of money. If there's the craving, the tanha, to be a millionaire, then there is, in that minute, there is existence as a millionaire. Or in other minutes, there may be the craving to be a politician with lots of power. And then in that minute there is existence as a politician. Or sometimes we crave to be businessmen, and then there is existence as a businessman. Or we crave to be monks and nuns, and then there is existence as a monk or a nun. And so this is why tanha is described as bono pavika, meaning that it's every time there is craving, there leads to some existence immediately upon craving. There is an existence in some form or another. Sometimes a woman has wants and desires like a woman, but sometimes a woman has wants and desires like a man, and so exists as a man. It can go to this point where sometimes a woman exists as a man, and sometimes as a woman. And so this is why tanha is talked about as pono bhavika, leading to new bhava. Bhavika, leading to new bhava, or new existence. One can go through all kinds of different existences in a single day through the power of craving. Even throughout a single hour, there can be a tremendous crowd of existences. And then in an entire life, it's just full of all kinds of different existences. So, nanti raka sahatada means being associated with or tied up with. Nanti raka. Raka means lust or passion. Nanti means pleasure or satisfaction. And so what this means is a lustful satisfaction, or a passion for pleasure, a passion for satisfaction. Tanha is associated with, composed of, bound up with this having a passionate interest in, a longing for, a lust for satisfaction, for liking, for pleasure. This word raka, or lust, in Pali means for the mind to get so thoroughly caught up in something, so thoroughly imbued with it, that it's as if the mind is dyed by that thing. The word raka can also be used for a dye, to dye a cloth with some color. When the mind is so tied up with something, so caught up in it, that it becomes dyed, D-Y-E-D, or imbued with that thing. This is the meaning of raka. And nanti is a sense of pleased satisfaction, a sense of satisfaction, of liking. And so nanti raka is when the mind has imbued itself, dyed itself with pleasure and satisfaction. And so now our mind, our heart, has been dyed, D-Y-E-D, not D-I, dyed by whatever it is that satisfies us, pleases us, by whatever it is we like. This is our problem. The third characteristic of tanha is tatra tinantini, which means wandering around liking this, liking that, liking this, liking that, means just wandering all over the place, liking things, getting infatuated things without any limit. Basically being pulled all over the place by our likes and preferences. Tatra has the meaning of this and that, or this or that, this thing or that thing. And so tanha has this characteristic of being led, of all over, wandering all over, out of pleasure and satisfaction and liking for this and that and this thing and that thing, over here, over there, endlessly, without any limit, wandering all over the place. All phenomena can be the object of craving. Even negative things, both negative and positive phenomena can be taken as the object of tanha. This is what is meant in tatra. This thing or that thing, meaning even completely opposed things, meaning positive and negative. So the word tatra, apinandini, means to be completely infatuated with, completely engrossed with this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that, endlessly. So let's take a look at this. The first one is tanha creates a new existences. And then second, tanha dyes the mind with satisfaction in whatever it is that satisfies the mind. And then the third, falling into liking and disliking of all kinds of things, of this and of that. Now what we've just mentioned are three characteristics of tanha, but they're not different kinds of tanha. However, tanha itself, which has these three characteristics, can take three different forms. The first is kama tanha, which is craving for sensuality, for sensual pleasures, to get, basically craving to get. Then the second is bhava tanha, craving to be, craving to exist or to become. And then the third is vibhava tanha, craving to not exist, craving to not be. So there are the three kinds or forms that tanha takes: wanting to get, wanting to be, or wanting to not be. So it's quite easy to remember: wanting to get, wanting to be, wanting to not be. Wanting to get, wanting to be, wanting to not be. These are the three forms of tanha. And what's what's really interesting is this third one, wanting to not be. In the Pali, this is another kind of bhava, another existence. Wanting to not be is another kind of being. If you get lost in logic, you may not figure it out, but when we want to not be, say, I want to not live, I want to be dead, that's an existence. Wanting to not be is to exist in a certain way. All three kinds of these tanha are leading to a new existence in various ways. We challenge you to find a kind of tanha outside of these three, of all the cravings and desires that you have. We challenge you to find one that is different than these three. We don't think you'll be at all successful, but we challenge you nonetheless. Even somebody who wants to kill themselves, this is a kind of craving. In fact, it's a very, very powerful craving. The craving to be dead, wanting to be a dead person, is a tremendously strong kind of craving. All kinds of craving, whether in a positive way or a negative way, with a positive or a negative object, all of these still just come down to craving. Even if it's the craving to get rid of something, the craving to not be something. Good people have tanha, lunatics have tanha, the animals have craving, even the trees and plants have a kind of craving, but it's so subtle and refined that we don't even see it. Even the angels and celestial beings, if there are such things, have tanha, and the gods who are more powerful than the angels, they've got a even better or higher form, more reformed, refined kind of tanha. But all life is being sustained or is being nurtured on tanha, on craving. All these existences, should say all these existences, all these different ways of being are nurtured by craving. If the craving is very confused and overpowering, then that person goes crazy. So the existence, the states of being, come from tanha in this way. And then there is satisfaction. There is a pleasure in existing in that way, in that state of being. The first form of tanha, kama tanha, is related to sensual or basically sexual needs. Kama means basically sexuality, and so sexual desires are the core ingredient of this first kind of tanha. Everybody, all people, all ordinary people have got sexual desires, and they express themselves directly and indirectly in all kinds of ways. This is the first kind of tanha, the most kind of basic tanha we find in our lives. And then we have desires for all kinds of attractive, pleasing things that are attractive to the eyes, the ears, the nose, tongue, body, and mind. All of this, all this desire for these attractive, delicious things is called kama tanha, sensual, sexual desire. And we're full of all kinds of ideas about what to be. So I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be all these many things. This wanting to be something, this is bhava tanha, craving for existence, craving to exist in some way, many different ways, depending on the circumstances. And so just the thought of I am, I exist, this is the result of wanting to exist, of craving for existence. And then once one sees that being like this, being like that, existing in this or that way, that it's all full of problems, hassles, troubles, and difficulties, that all that existing and being is just a bunch of struggle, then I don't want any of that. I don't want to be like this, I don't want to be like that, I don't want to exist, I don't want to... And then there is all this craving to not be, craving for non-existence. Like 10 years or so ago, there was the one pseudo-Christian sect led by Jim Jones, and then they all drank poison in order to kill themselves. This is some kind of form of vibhava tanha, craving for non-existence. This is just another kind of deception of losing one's way. And you see it in many people. They get a little frustrated or disappointed, and then they say, oh, I want to die. I'm sick of this. I don't want to put up with this anymore. This is happening all the time. We meet with a little disappointment or difficulty or frustration. We get depressed, and then we don't want to exist. We want to die. In some people, this craving for non-existence can be so strong that they actually go and kill themselves. When our mindfulness and wisdom faculty loses its way, then tanha arises. When our sense, our understanding of what is correct and incorrect, of what is our proper duty and what isn't, when this loses its way, wanders off the path, then tanha arises. Whenever wisdom cannot discern, is unable to see what is correct, then there will be tanha coming up. So tanha is when life has gotten off track. It's heading in the wrong direction. And this helps us see how tanha comes from ignorance. When there's ignorance, when there's incorrect understanding, then life gets off track. The wisdom faculty gets derailed, and then tanha arises. All craving, all forms of craving arise from ignorance, from a lack of proper understanding, from not knowing things according to truth. And so then we lose the way, and tanha occurs. Every arising of dukkha every arising of tanha is always dukkha. Every occurrence of tanha is always dukkha. No matter how dukkha or how tanha arises, where, when, under what circumstances, every instance, every occurrence of tanha is always dukkha. if the want or the desire doesn't come from ignorance, then we don't call it tanha. If the want and the desire is wise, then we don't call it tanha. For example, if you've come to Suan Mok with mindfulness and wisdom, with correct knowledge and understanding, you've come here in order to study Dhamma and develop the mind in order to extinguish dukkha. If we've come in this way, then that would not be called craving. That's not tanha. But then there are some who come looking for superstitious powers, and that's full of tanha, and it'll probably make them crazy too. So please be careful to discriminate well between wanting with ignorance and wanting without ignorance. If our desire comes from a misunderstanding of truth, then it's called tanha, because it comes from avijja. But if the desire, the want, is coming from a correct understanding of the way things are, if it's coming from wisdom, then we don't call it craving. So then there's the saying, don't live through tanha, don't live by craving. You ought to live with mindfulness and wisdom. You ought to live according to mindfulness and wisdom. We shouldn't have lives that are led by tanha, because it'll keep dragging us into dukkha. But instead we should go through life living under the direction of mindfulness and wisdom. And in Pali there's a word, a neutral word, that also means or desire. This word is sankappa. It just means want or desire, and it's a neutral kind of want or desire. But then usually there is added either the word miccha, wrong, or samma, correct, proper, right. And so then there can be right desire, wise desire, as well as wrong desire or foolish desire. So there's a kind of want and desire which is correct and proper, and another kind of want or desire which is foolish, dangerous, and wrong. So we should be very careful about these kind of words, because tremendous confusion is brought about because we don't distinguish carefully. For example, tanha always means ignorant. It's always blind and stupid. Blind want, stupid want, ignorant want, or whatever. So we need to find an English word that includes within it this sense of ignorance, blindness, stupidity. The word sankappa, however, has no sense of being stupid or incorrect. It's completely neutral. So we have to find one word for tanha which clearly implies stupidity and incorrectness. And for sankappa we must find another word that has no connotation of this being incorrect or foolish. And so sometimes for sankappa the word used is aim. But you can please think about this for yourself in English as well as other languages. Don't use the cheap and easy definitions or translations, but find the word that has the proper, help us to find the words that have the proper connotations. A word that's relevant here is the word hope. This seems to be a word that the Westerners are quite attached to. But in Thailand it just doesn't, it never has had very much importance or meaning. But it seems that Westerners often like to live by their hopes and their wishes. And they've even come to Thailand to teach Thai children to have a life that's based on hope. So the question is, all this hope, is it wise hope or stupid hope? Are they hopes which are under the power of ignorance, or hopes and wishes which are under the power of wisdom? We ought to be very, very careful about this word hope, because it could be a kind of hope which is just another form of danha. But then again, hope might be, or at least sometimes, might have nothing to do with danha. So in summary, danha is to desire to want under the power of ignorance, desiring through the power of ignorance. This is this is the meaning of danha, and this is the dukkha samudaya, the origin of dukkha. This is the source and cause of dukkha, this danha, or craving through the power of ignorance and foolishness. This is the second noble truth, the dukkha samudaya ariya satya, the noble truth of the origin of dukkha. And so the subject of the origin of dukkha has come to a close at the same time that we've run out of, at the same moment that we've run out of time. So we finished both of them together, and we'll end today's meeting at this auspicious moment. So please help us figure out which of the following words are completely neutral. Desire, want, aim, aspiration, or any other words. Do we have any of these which are completely neutral, that don't have to be stupid? Like, for example, desired, does it tend to be on the wrong side or not? Please help us figure it out for yourself first, and then help the world to understand. Thank you.